Most ballets from the Romantic era have actually been completely lost to time, but Giselle is one of only two that is still regularly performed throughout the world. And not only has it been preserved, but it has maintained its position as one of ballet's masterpieces, a jewel in the classical canon, beloved by both dancers and audiences alike. But what makes this ballet so special, and what should you look for in a performance? Let's take a look. But first, special thanks to Marquee TV for sponsoring this video. They are an amazing arts streaming platform, my personal favorite, with hundreds of recent classical, contemporary, neoclassical dance productions alongside opera, theater, documentaries, and more. Giselle, like so many works of art, was a child of its times. Premiering in 1841 in Paris, it was birthed in the aftermath and in large part because of the French Revolution. And here's where you might ask, what does the French Revolution have to do with ballet? Well, quite a bit actually. Pre-revolutionary ballets were mostly made by and for the aristocracy. They told the stories of gods and goddesses in all of their glories, essentially promoting an idealized version of the upper classes to themselves and to the public. However, after the revolution, the monarchy and their friends were out of style and the common person was in, for a little while anyway. And the ballets, like always, reflected the changing fashions. Now, instead of being about the warring gods and goddesses, they were filled with fairies, sprites, ghosts, witches, and magic, reflecting the beliefs and superstitions of the everyday person, which gave us the Romantic era. And remember, in ballet, the Romantic era comes first, followed by the classical, which is the opposite in music, where the classical comes first, followed by the Romantic. There are a lot of interesting things about this ballet. One of them is that it has retained, for the most part, a lot of its original choreography, which surprisingly, the same cannot be said for many of the classics. Giselle is, of course, technically demanding, but what it's really known for is the emotional depth and subtlety that it requires of its starring ballerina. And it has become a kind of litmus test for whether or not a ballerina is truly great. Because if she's relying on technique to cover or replace any deficiencies in her acting abilities, that will be uncovered in this ballet. In fact, one of the scenes, which just so happens to be one of the most famous scenes in all of ballet, requires little to no technique and can actually make or break the show. Known as the mad scene, where Giselle discovers that she's been betrayed by her two-timing dishonest love and proceeds to lose her mind and finally her life. Here we have a production with the Royal Ballet starring the veteran prima Marianela Nunez. And as you can see, she's clearly out of her mind, and you aren't going to find any bravura technique to distract you from the character's emotional plight. If this role is danced by a ballerina who isn't truly a skilled actress, then it's going to be campy at best and tiresome at worst. And there's really nothing worse you can do to an audience than bore them. But if it's danced by a ballerina who's truly a great actress, then like any Hollywood star, she's going to take you into the experience with her, and you'll follow her on her descent into madness. Now let's head into the iconic second act, a glorious example of all that's right in ballet and the world. And this act requires something completely different from the ballerina. If the first act demands that she go in just under the space of an hour, from innocent, joyful, in love, to betrayed, crazed, and finally dead, all completely understandable human experiences, the second act asks her to transcend from the human into the spiritual realm. You're going to see plenty of technique for both her and her partner, her repentant love from Act 1. The challenge is, through this incredibly difficult technique, she has to give the illusion of weightlessness, for she's risen from the dead, so her character is required to be transcendent, both physically and emotionally. And his partnering skills are a huge part of creating this illusion of dealing with a spirit rather than a woman. How do you know if the second act is well done? Well, if you're crying, that's a good sign. If shedding a tear isn't your style, you should feel as if you've completely forgotten yourself and gone into both the steps and eventually the grave with her. This is an extremely important ballet in the lifespan of a ballerina, and it has defined many careers and become a calling card for many of the world's greatest dancers. You can watch this full Royal Ballet production on Marquee TV, or if you're lucky, you might be able to find it on stage at your local ballet company. It's not a ballet that's performed every single year by every company, like, for example, the Nutcracker, but it is performed fairly regularly throughout the world. Is there a certain ballet you'd like to know more about? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this and you want to be kept in the loop for more great dance and arts content, make sure you subscribe to this channel and subscribe to my free Substack at the link in the bio. Thanks for watching. I'm Cynthia Dragoni, The Dance Lens.